My name is Megan Foster, and I'm 30 years old. Since becoming an adult, I've never allowed myself a single day of relaxation. I worked tirelessly, scrimped and saved, putting every single penny I earned into the bank, until finally, I'd managed to save up $150,000. That was all the security I had, the only foundation I'd built against the uncertainties of the future, the independent capital I'd earned through countless late nights working overtime and countless simple meals eaten alone. I thought this solid, hard-earned sense of security was unshakable until that Sunday family dinner when a carefully orchestrated scheme utterly shattered my peace of mind. My older brother, Brandon, slammed a debt collection notice onto the table with such force that the papers scattered everywhere. In that instant, his eyes blazing red, he practically roared at me. "I owe $100,000 in gambling debts. You've got to take out your savings and help me pay them off. You've got to come with me and sign the mortgage, or those guys'll take my life. This is what you owe this family." He stared at me, his voice devoid of any plea, filled instead with raw, unrelenting greed, as if my savings were somehow destined to foot the bill for his mess. Without a second thought, I shot back, "My money is for my own future. There's no way I'm going to use it to bail him out of his gambling debts." As soon as the words left my mouth, Dad slammed his hand down on the table so hard that the bowls and chopsticks clattered together, his roar nearly shaking the roof off. "He's your own brother. You just stand by and watch him die. Do you even have a shred of humanity left?" Mom, meanwhile, fixed her gaze on me, her eyes icy cold, as if dipped in poison. "If you don't help him, you'll be driving this whole family straight into ruin. If you're willing to let him die, then don't ever call us your parents again." The air in the room seemed to freeze solid, turning into ice. Their insults and accusations rained down on me like hailstones, but though my fists were clenched so tightly that my nails dug into my palms, I forced myself to stay calm and respond. Why should I pay for his greed and stupidity? My future, isn't that worth something? I don't owe any of you a thing. Having said that, I ignored their flushed faces and hysterical curses, turned around and walked away. The roar behind me echoed long after I'd left the hallway. As soon as I got into the car, my phone started vibrating frantically. A text from my mom felt like it had been dipped in ice. "Either bring the signed mortgage documents to our house tomorrow, or from now on, we'll just pretend we never had a daughter like you." That single sentence shattered years of familial bonds into tiny shards. My chest felt as though it had been struck by a heavy hammer, yet I didn't waver in the slightest. The harder they pushed, the more firmly I stood my ground. Late at night, sitting in front of my computer, my fingertips turned pale from gripping the keyboard so tightly, yet my movements remained perfectly steady as I froze every account we'd ever shared, changed all the passwords, and blocked off every possible avenue through which they might access my assets. Early the next morning, my phone screen blazed with 21 missed calls, and my inbox overflowed with Dad's furious rants, Mom's tearful pleas, and Brandon's vicious insults. The words cold-blooded, ungrateful, and traitor flooded the screen like a tidal wave, trying desperately to drown me in guilt. They thought that by doing this, they could force me to give in, but little did they know that I was no longer that little girl who longed for their approval. In the days that followed, their pressure only intensified. Each new attempt to exert control felt like a knife, slicing apart whatever warmth still remained between us, and pushing me to make a choice that would completely transform my life. Before I continue my story, I'd like to ask you, if your closest loved ones were to hold you hostage with emotional ties, demanding that you hand over everything you've worked so hard for over the years to clean up the mess they've created themselves, would you choose to sacrifice your future? Or would you stand firm, holding on to your Shan and resolutely protecting yourself? Please share your honest thoughts in the comment section. I'm truly eager to hear what you have to say. I grew up in the suburbs of Charlotte, and in the eyes of our neighbors, our family was nothing short of perfect. My dad was a sales manager, spending his days closing deals for an insurance company, always dressed in crisp, ironed shirts. Mom is an accountant who manages meticulous bookkeeping for a small business in the city center. Her desk is piled high with spreadsheets of all kinds. My older brother, Brandon, 3 years my senior, is their pride and joy. No matter what's going on, they always think of him first. To outsiders, we seem like a typical middle-class family. 2 kids, a neat house, and a compact van parked in the driveway. But beneath this polished exterior, nothing feels balanced, and I've had that sense ever since I was very young. As a child, I threw myself wholeheartedly into studying. Numbers were my refuge, and their logic offered me a comforting sense of stability. In 5th grade, I won a math award in a regional competition. Clutching the certificate, I couldn't wait to show it to my parents, imagining the look of pride on their faces. But that day, Brandon had a basketball game, and they chose to go to the court to cheer him on. "We'll look back someday," Mom said over the phone, her voice sounding distracted. Yet someday never came. Weeks went by, and that certificate gathered dust on the kitchen counter. It wasn't the first time. Whether it was Brandon's games, his school plays, or even his unremarkable grades, he always seemed to get his parents' undivided attention. They'd cheer louder when he succeeded, and their smiles would light up even more brightly whenever he walked into the room. After I started middle school, I stopped chasing their approval, and instead focused on the things I could actually control: my grades, my goals. Every night, I'd stay in my room, solving equations or reading books about personal finance, dreaming of a life where I could make my own choices. Once I found my own path in life, my parents' preference for Brandon stopped hurting me as much. Whenever the school held a carnival, I'd always wander alone among the various booths, surrounded by the cheerful laughter and chatter of families. Neighbors would stop to compliment how close our family was, yet they never once noticed the emotional distance lurking within me. At those neighborhood picnics, watching kids race through the quiet streets while parents exchanged lemonade with one another, I became increasingly aware of the imbalance in my own home life. In my teens, I began taking control of my own life. I found a part-time job at a local bookstore, helping to organize shelves and ring up customers after school. The work was tedious, dealing with dusty books and lugging heavy boxes, but it gave me a sense of freedom. My very first paycheck was only $80, yet it felt profoundly meaningful. I opened a savings account at a nearby bank and started putting away every single penny I could save. "You really are a reliable kid," the bookstore manager said to me. Her words warmed my heart more than any comment from my parents ever could. As I rode my bike through Charlotte's peaceful streets, passing row after row of neatly kept houses, a flicker of pride began to stir within me. This job had made me realize that, without their support, I could still create something entirely my own. Meanwhile, Brandon seemed to be sailing smoothly through life. He always managed to charm his teachers with his quick wit, getting by with minimal effort and barely even noticing when he skipped homework or stayed out late into the night. His parents never seemed to care about his unfinished assignments or his late-night wanderings. "Brandon's just still figuring things out," Dad would always say, brushing off yet another instance of him breaking curfew as if it were no big deal. At dinner one evening, I overheard them casually planning to splurge on the latest basketball shoes for him and send him off to summer camp, while my own accomplishments, like scoring a perfect score on a math test, hardly ever earned so much as a glance from them. I don't entirely blame Brandon. He was spoiled by his parents' indulgence. But I know I can't count on them to see my worth. During those years in Charlotte, I grew up in a way my parents never understood. School fairs, community picnics, and quiet moments spent in bookstores, these were all treasures uniquely mine. I learned to set my own standards and measure my worth by my own actions, rather than relying on their approval. To my parents, I was just an obedient daughter, but I was quietly building a life foundation that they'd never be able to grasp until it was already too late. By the time I reached high school, I'd already learned to rely on myself. The experiences of my childhood taught me how to stand on my own 2 feet, and that belief has been driving me ever since to pursue a future I could truly control. I set my sights on college, not merely as an escape route, but as a path to building a solid, self-determined life. My grades were outstanding, and my focus was more unwavering than ever before. Every day, I studied late into the night, determined to carve out a bright future for myself. My efforts paid off. I earned a full academic scholarship to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, enabling me to pursue a major in finance without accumulating a single penny in debt. Entering university felt like stepping into an entirely new world. The campus of the University of North Carolina at Charlotte was brimming with opportunities, and I threw myself into them wholeheartedly. I majored in finance, drawn to its logic and precision. The courses on investing and personal finance felt like deciphering a language I'd always longed to master. Yet the scholarship didn't cover all my expenses. Textbook fees, meal costs, and housing expenses quickly added up. I refused to ask my family for help, so I found a part-time job at the university's financial aid office. This job isn't glamorous. Mostly it involves sorting documents and updating spreadsheets, but it's enough to cover my daily expenses. I work every afternoon and then study until midnight, tackling equations and expense reports with the same level of focus. Most of my colleagues are graduate students, and they've all noticed my dedication. "You're really persistent," one colleague joked half-seriously once, as I was checking the ledger for the third time. "This job has taught me more than any textbook ever could. I'm in complete control of every single penny I earn." 4 years later, I graduated with honors, not only debt-free but also with a degree in finance. I didn't stop to celebrate, though, because I'd already started planning for the future. Charlotte's booming financial industry is the perfect launching pad for my career. I landed a junior financial analyst position at a mid-sized company in the city center, where I'm responsible for analyzing data related to corporate budgets. Although the job comes with high demands, I actually enjoy it immensely. My first paycheck just topped $2,000, a milestone for me. I opened a high-yield savings account and began steadily building my future. My life is taken on a disciplined rhythm. I record every single expense in a spreadsheet, from buying coffee to paying rent, leaving no detail overlooked. I've cut out all unnecessary spending, no more lavish dinners, no more impulse shopping. My apartment is small, a one-bedroom unit in a quiet neighborhood, but it's more than enough for me. On Sundays, I cook large batches of food and freeze it for later, which saves both time and money. Every month, I set aside a portion of my salary and watch my savings grow bit by bit. Each increment fills me with a deep sense of accomplishment. By the time I turned 25, I'd already saved up $50,000. That's when I started dipping my toes into small-scale investments like index funds, learning market dynamics and diversification strategies under the guidance of experienced mentors. I've always stuck to my principle of avoiding debt. Even when my colleagues teased me, calling me the budget queen, I refused to follow their lead and take out loans. I paid cash for my used car instead. By the time I was nearing 30, my savings had climbed to $150,000. For me, that sum represented both security and freedom. I'm passionate about finance, and my meticulous approach has earned me recognition from my boss. In my spare time, I've been diligently honing my professional skills. With a disciplined rhythm of work, save, invest, I've been steadily building the foundation of my life. At that time, though I didn't yet realize it, challenges were on the horizon, but I was already fully prepared to face them on my own. It was another monthly family dinner, and as soon as I stepped into my parents' home, I sensed an unusual heaviness in the air. There were no cheerful laughs or lively conversations as usual. Only an oppressive silence hung thickly in the room. Brandon sat across from me, his face ashen, his hands clenched tightly into fists, his fingertips turning pale. His parents kept exchanging glances, their expressions complex yet tinged with a hint of resolve. Before I could even speak, Brandon suddenly slammed his hand down on the table, flinging a crumpled debt collection notice for gambling debts right in front of me. The paper scattered across the floor, and he roared at me, his eyes blazing red and his voice nearly frantic. "I'm $100,000 in gambling debt. You've got to dig out your savings and help me pay it off, and you're coming with me to sign the mortgage. Otherwise, those guys won't leave me alone." His voice was laced with an awe-one urgency, as if my hard-earned savings were somehow meant to foot the bill for his reckless gambling habit. In an instant, the image of that $150,000 flashed through my mind, the future security I'd earned through countless overtime nights and endless quick meals. My fingers tightened around the fork so fiercely that my nails almost dug into my palm, yet I forced myself to remain calm and respond. No way. This money is my future. There's no way I'm going to let you use it to cover your gambling debts. Brandon's anger flared up in an instant. His teeth clenched so tightly that they ground together with a sharp clicking sound. This is my last chance. If you just stand by and watch me die, it'll be because you wanted me to die all along. He's your own brother. How can you be so cold-blooded? Dad slammed his hand down on the table so hard that the bowls and chopsticks rattled noisily. His roar was so fierce it nearly tore the roof off the house, and his face turned as red as raw liver. Mom, meanwhile, stared at me with eyes like daggers, her voice icy and cutting. Family comes first. If you've got the means, you have to help him. Otherwise, you're destroying this whole family, and we might as well just pretend we never had you. Their synchronized accusations came raining down like hailstones, yet the firm resolve in my heart remained unshaken. It had taken me over a decade to build up this sense of security. Every single penny I'd saved was soaked in my blood and sweat. There was no way I'd let someone who'd been reckless and spoiled since childhood, someone they'd indulged and encouraged all along, squander it away. How much I've paid for this money? You'll never see it, I said, my voice calm yet firm, unshakable in its conviction. The fire of anger burned fiercely in my chest, yet my reason held fast to the line. He has to take responsibility for his own mistakes. I'm not going to risk my future for him. The atmosphere at the dinner table froze instantly. Brandon suddenly kicked the table with such force that plates shattered on the floor. He roared, "You're just selfish. You think because you're doing well now, you're somehow better than everyone else, don't you?" Mom tried to pull him away, but he violently shoved her aside. Dad stepped forward, pointing his finger right at my nose and shouting angrily, "You're just standing by and watching your brother walk straight into his own death. You'll pay for this someday." "I'm not responsible for his gambling debts in any way," I snapped, pushing my chair back so hard that it screeched across the floor as I stood up to retort. He chose this rotten path himself. Why should I be the one to clean up his mess? If you don't help, don't ever set foot in this house again. Mom's voice was as sharp and unyielding as a blade. My heart felt a sudden, piercing ache, yet I kept my back straight. I'm choosing my own future. Ignoring their venomous stares and hysterical curses, I grabbed my coat and headed straight for the door. Behind me, Brandon roared, "You'll regret this." But I didn't look back, not even once. On the drive home, my phone vibrated. It was a text from Mom. "Sign the papers or don't come back." My heart sank, but not because of hesitation. Her ultimatum itself was a betrayal, carving an unbridgeable chasm between us. It had taken me years to achieve independence, yet they wanted to destroy it all just because of Brandon's reckless behavior. I parked the car in the apartment complex, my mind racing with thoughts yet strangely clear-headed. No one could touch my savings. I'd sacrificed so much. I'd never let them win. The words family and responsibility echoed in my ears, yet they no longer had the power to shake my resolve. Sitting on the sofa, I kept replaying the events of that evening over and over. Brandon's desperate pleas, Dad's furious outburst, and Mom's cold, curt text message. They thought they could force me into submission by playing on my guilt, but I was no longer that teenage girl who'd yearned for their approval. I was a woman who'd built her life piece by piece, making choice after choice, all on my own. Their demands had nothing to do with family at all. They were simply trying to control me. I felt deeply the sting of their betrayal, but beneath that pain, a flame was burning fiercely. I'd had enough of bending to their expectations. My savings, my future. These were mine to protect, and no one could ever take them away from me. Early the next morning, my phone was flooded with 21 missed calls and a screen full of angry texts. Dad's voice boomed through his voicemail, blasting me with accusations of selfish betrayal. Mom's text messages accused me of tearing our family apart. The guilt-laden words between the lines almost suffocated me. I'd anticipated their dissatisfaction, but I never could have imagined it would escalate into such a storm. Just then, a bank alert popped up. The old joint account, one that hadn't been used for years, had multiple failed login attempts, and the timestamps showed they'd occurred shortly after I'd left last night. "It's Brandon," I clenched my teeth. His recklessness had now reached the point of outright theft. I fought to keep my anger in check, calmly and precisely changing the passwords, enabling two-factor authentication, and freezing all accounts, determined not to let anyone lay a finger on the hard-earned money and the future I'd worked so tirelessly for. I needed to take a deep breath, so I immediately called my friend Tara and arranged to meet her at a cafe in the city center. I laid out the whole story, from start to finish, and as she held my hand tightly, she said firmly, "This savings is your safety net, not their lifeline. You haven't done anything wrong." Her words were like a soothing balm, lifting the fog of guilt from my heart and reminding me that I wasn't alone or helpless. This support only strengthened the resolve deep within me. Later that evening, a text message from my cousin Monica finally revealed the whole truth. Brandon's gambling addiction had been going on for ages, far from being a new development. He'd not only emptied my aunt's savings and borrowed money from my uncle, but his parents had even stepped in twice to clean up his messes, all while keeping it completely hidden from me. Monica warned me, "Don't let their guilt trap you. This isn't your responsibility." Her words hit me like a sledgehammer. They weren't asking for help at all. They were simply trying to make me foot the bill for the mess they'd created themselves. The pressure from my family never stopped. The cold messages from my dad and my mom's relentless moral blackmail kept battering at me. But I knew deep down that it had taken me over a decade, from working part-time at a bookstore to becoming a financial analyst, to earn my independence, and I would never, ever give in now. As I stared at the secure bank account on my computer, recalling Tara's unwavering support and Monica's stark warning, Charlotte, a city that had once felt like home, now seemed to have become nothing more than a prison that held me captive. A thought took root in my heart: leave this place and start over somewhere where I can truly take control of my own life. Though I'm filled with fear, this newborn seed has quietly begun to sprout. No matter what the future holds, I'm determined to keep walking my own path. By Wednesday, the pressure from my family had become suffocating. My phone kept buzzing with notifications, but this time, it wasn't just calls and texts. Brandon had actually gone straight to social media and posted a lengthy rant, accusing me of abandoning my family. "She's got money, yet she refuses to help her own brother," he wrote, his words dripping with bitterness. The post spread like wildfire, quickly gaining likes and shares from distant relatives and old neighbors. The comments section erupted in anger. Strangers who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly lashed out, calling me cold, selfish, and unfaithful. "How could you just stand by and watch your family suffer?" Someone wrote this, I thought, scrolling through the screen. A sharp pang struck my heart, and their judgment felt like a towering mountain pressing down on me, leaving me gasping for air. I didn't reply, because I knew any response would only add fuel to the fire. That afternoon, urgent knocking at the door shattered the quiet. When I opened it, I found my parents standing there, their faces grim and dark. Without a word, Dad barged in, followed closely by Mom, who was clutching a stack of documents with red-rimmed eyes. As soon as they sat down, the atmosphere froze instantly. "You've got to sign these mortgage papers and help Brandon pay off his debts. That's the only way to save him." Dad slammed the documents onto the table in front of me, his tone leaving no room for argument. Mom's voice trembled as she pleaded, "We're a family. We should stick together." As I stared at the documents, images of years of hard work and sweat flashed through my mind. Without hesitation, I pushed them back toward them and said firmly, "I can't risk my own future. I'm not doing this." Dad instantly flew into a rage, sharply accusing me of being ungrateful and betraying the family. Mom reached out to pull me back, pleading with me not to tear this family apart. I pulled my hand away, my voice calm yet firm. "This is Brandon's choice. It has nothing to do with me, and it's certainly not my responsibility as a family member." The room fell utterly silent, filled only with their anger and despair. After Dad bellowed, "You'll regret this someday," he stormed out in a huff. Mom lowered her head and followed him silently, leaving me alone in the suffocating stillness. Just then, an email from my colleague James broke the silence. A financial firm in Austin was hiring a senior analyst, offering nearly double the salary and relocation assistance, and bluntly stated that I'd be an ideal fit. Austin, a place where I could put some distance between myself and Charlotte's heavy past and the relentless pressure from my family. I read the email twice, and hope began to burn brightly within me. This was undoubtedly a lifeline, a way out of the mess I'd been trapped in. That late night, my phone rang and Brandon's name appeared on the screen. After a brief hesitation, I still answered the call. "You're betraying us," he roared, his voice seething with anger. "You think you're better than all of us, don't you? You took your own money and ran off, leaving me to fend for myself in this mess." His words were harsh, but I'd grown tired of hearing them. "I'm not your solution, Brandon," I said calmly yet firmly. "You're the one who got yourself into this mess. You'll have to figure it out on your own." He cursed under his breath, his voice trembling, but I simply hung up, my hands unnaturally steady. I'd had enough of being their scapegoat. The next morning, I made my decision. I replied to James and accepted Austin's job offer. It hadn't been an easy choice. Leaving Charlotte meant saying goodbye to everything I'd ever known, from my apartment to my daily routines. But this also means freedom, a freedom to safeguard my savings and secure my future. I began searching for an apartment in Austin, imagining its new skyline, its fresh streets, and a brand new beginning. The accusations from my family, calling me ungrateful and selfish, still echoed in my ears, but they no longer had any power to hold me back. I'd built my own life through my own hard work, and now I was ready to take the next step, regardless of what they thought. 2 weeks later, I flew to Austin to start a new chapter. Stepping out of the airport, the warm air here felt like a stark contrast to Charlotte's heavy past. With just a few simple bags, I said goodbye to the ties that had once held me back. At James's modern financial firm downtown, a new job awaited me. I joined the team as a senior analyst, focused on optimizing clients' investment portfolios. My very first project, a budget optimization initiative for a tech startup, earned high praise from James. "You're truly a natural-born talent." Amid the challenges of work, my confidence has been steadily growing. Outside of work, Austin's vibrant energy has deeply captivated me. During team activities, I met Kelly, a cheerful and easygoing colleague, and we quickly became close friends. She took me to the Ladybug Lake Food Truck Festival, where the lively atmosphere banished the last traces of tension from my heart. We also joined in art walks and evenings of live music together, allowing me to experience a sense of belonging like never before. Yet, shadows from my past still lingered, so I began seeing Dr. Margaret Cole for psychotherapy. She gently helped me realize that my family's expectations were, at their core, manipulative, and that I had every right to choose my own life. Gradually, therapy eased my psychological burden, enabling me to clearly forgive myself for my choices and freeing me from the guilt of having refused to become their solution. Tara called from Charlotte, cheerfully asking how I was enjoying life in Austin. We talked about my new job, the festivals I've been attending, and my apartment, and she was genuinely delighted to see me happy. This casual conversation made me appreciate our friendship all the more. It's a healthy connection to my past, yet one that doesn't hold me back. Not long after, Monica sent me a text message saying that Brandon's gambling addiction had worsened, his debts had piled up even higher, and his parents had even refinanced their home just to help him out, but now they could no longer afford the monthly mortgage payments. Though my heart ached for them, I felt absolutely no guilt. After all, this was precisely the outcome they'd invited by enabling Brandon's behavior. I simply replied, "Thanks for letting me know," then put down my phone, fully aware that their lives were their own responsibility. Austin was slowly becoming my home. On weekends, I'd hike through Zilker Park, and at work, I was taking on increasingly important projects. With Dr. Cole's guidance, I'd learned to stay fully present in the moment, and spending time with Kelly brought so much joy. These moments have woven themselves into the fabric of my life. I'm not running away from Charlotte. I'm building a better future that I truly deserve. After living in Austin for half a year, I stood on my apartment balcony, gazing out at the night view, and deeply felt the sense of freedom and fulfillment. Cutting ties with my family was difficult, yet necessary. They'd once held me captive with guilt, but now I've crafted a life that aligns with my own values, no longer defined by their expectations. Monica reached out again. Brandon had been sued by creditors, and his parents were facing the risk of losing their home due to mortgage defaults. Their plight broke my heart, yet I felt no guilt. I'd warned them long ago. It was they who stubbornly indulged Brandon, and they alone should bear the consequences. I replied to her, "This is their own choice." I've found a new purpose in life. Every Saturday, I teach financial literacy to teenagers at the community center, sharing tips on budgeting, saving, and avoiding debt. The eager eyes of the children remind me of my younger self. To pass on the skills I've learned to them and inspire them to take control of their own lives. It's a healing experience for me. 2. Looking back, I finally realized that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's a survival necessity. Protecting my own future has been the hardest yet most right choice I've ever made. True family members will respect your limits rather than forcing you to pay for their mistakes. Austin taught me that my worth doesn't depend on my family's approval. Without them, I can still live a life full of meaning and joy. Thank you so much for patiently listening to my story. Your support means more to me than words can express. Sharing these experiences hasn't been easy, but knowing you're here listening to me makes it all worthwhile. If you've ever faced pressure from your family, feel free to share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it and help inspire others to find their own inner strength. Like and follow me, grow together with me, and learn to choose yourself. Let's study and improve together and bravely live for ourselves.